Oliver was a playful otter, always full of energy. He lived with his family in a cozy den by the river, surrounded by nature. Every day was an exciting adventure. He loved to slide down muddy banks, feeling the rush. He would splash in the water with his siblings, making waves. Oliver's mom taught him to fish. Life was really good.
Come on, sleepyhead, time to wake up.
His brother called out.
Let's go catch some breakfast together.
Oliver and his siblings tumbled out of their den, eager for a day of fun and fish. The otter pups spent all morning playing hide and seek. They chased each other through the reeds, laughing. They practiced their best belly flops into the water. Oliver felt so happy to be an otter living freely. He loved his family and his beautiful river home. As the sun climbed higher, the sky began to darken. The wind howled through the trees. Big fat raindrops began to fall. The playful splashes in the river turned into a swirling torrent.
Hurry, little ones, back to the den.
Mama Otter barked, her eyes wide with worry. The otter pups scurried towards home, their fur flattened against their bodies. The storm raged on, louder and fiercer than any they had seen before. The river, once their playground, was now a churning, dangerous force. Suddenly a giant wave crashed over the bank. Oliver felt himself being swept away from his family.
Mama!
He cried, but his voice was lost in the roar of the storm. He tumbled through the water, branches and leaves swirling around him. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the storm calmed. The rain softened to a drizzle. Oliver, battered and bruised, managed to scramble onto the muddy bank. He was alone. Oliver shivered, his fur cold and wet. He called for his family, but only silence answered him. Fear gnawed at his heart. He was lost and alone. The forest seemed dark and scary without his family by his side. He sniffed the air, hoping to catch a familiar scent, but the storm had washed everything away. Despondently, he curled himself into a ball under a fallen log. The sound of his own whimpers filled the silence. The forest, once so familiar and welcoming, now seemed full of unknown dangers. Every rustle of leaves, every hoot of an owl made him jump. He longed for the warmth of his mother's fur, the playful nips of his siblings. But Oliver was a brave little otter. He knew he couldn't stay curled up under the log forever. He had to find his family. Taking a deep breath, he poked his nose out from under the log and set off into the forest. There, sitting on a fallen log and gnawing on a twig, was a beaver. The beaver stopped whistling and looked up. He had kind eyes and a wide, flat tail. Just when he thought he couldn't go on any longer, he heard a cheerful whistling sound. He peeked cautiously from behind a bush. Oliver followed the winding path beside the river, his little paws sinking into the mud. He was tired, hungry, and very scared.
Well, hello there. You're not looking so chipper. What's your name, little fellow?
I'm Oliver.
Nice to meet you, Oliver. I'm Benny. What brings you to these parts?
Oliver told Benny about the storm and how he had become separated from his family. Benny listened patiently, nodding his head sympathetically.
That sounds scary. Don't worry, you can stay with me until we figure things out.
Benny led Oliver to his home, a cozy lodge built beside a sparkling lake. The water shimmered under the golden rays of the setting sun, casting a warm glow over the entire scene. The lodge was warm and smelled of fresh wood and damp earth. The walls were adorned with trinkets and mementos from Benny's adventures, giving the place a lived-in, welcoming feel. Oliver felt a glimmer of hope for the first time since the storm. The serene environment and Benny's comforting presence made him feel safe.
This is Lily.
Benny said, introducing Oliver to a beautiful black and white bird swimming gracefully in the lake. Her feathers glistened in the sunlight, making her look almost magical.
She's a loon, and she knows these woods like the back of her wing. She can guide you through the densest parts of the forest.
Lily swam closer, her bright red eyes curious and full of understanding.
Lost your family, have you?
She asked in a voice that sounded like laughter, yet carried a tone of empathy. Oliver nodded, his tail drooping, feeling the weight of his loneliness.
Don't you worry, we'll find them. We have a strong community here. But first, you need a good meal and a good night's sleep. You need to regain your strength.
Lily dove beneath the surface of the lake and re-emerged a moment later, a wriggling fish in her beak. The water droplets sparkled like diamonds as she surfaced. Oliver gratefully accepted the offering, his stomach growling in anticipation. He had never tasted anything so delicious. The fish was fresh and tender, a true delicacy. After he had eaten his fill, feeling more content than he had in days, Benny showed Oliver a bed of soft moss in a corner of the lodge. It looked incredibly inviting. Exhausted but comforted by the kindness of his new friends, Oliver felt a sense of belonging. Oliver curled up and closed his eyes, drifting into a peaceful sleep, dreaming of the day he would reunite with his family. The next morning, Benny and Lily decided to take Oliver to meet their friend, Sammy the squirrel.
Sammy knows all the animals in the forest. He might have seen your family.
They followed a winding path through the trees, their paws crunching on fallen leaves. The sun peeked through the branches, dappling the forest floor with light. Oliver was starting to feel a little bit better.
Look who's here.
Benny called up to him. Sammy scampered down the trunk of the tree, his black eyes bright with curiosity.
This is Oliver. He got separated from his family in the storm.
Sammy listened intently, his head cocked to one side.
I haven't seen any other otters, but I know someone who might be able to help.
Sammy led them deeper into the forest, to a clearing where a wise old owl perched on a branch, surveying the surroundings with a calm demeanor. The owl, whose name was Professor Hootington, had been around for as long as anyone could remember, a living repository of the forest's history and secrets. He had a kind face and piercing yellow eyes that seemed to see everything, as if he could peer into the very soul of the forest and its inhabitants.
Professor Hootington, I need your help. I've been separated from my family and I don't know where to start looking.
Professor Hootington listened patiently as Oliver told his story, his eyes never leaving the young otter's face. When he was finished, the owl closed his eyes and seemed to think for a very long time, as if searching through the annals of his vast memory. Oliver held his breath, hoping the wise owl would have good news, his heart pounding in his chest.
Do you think he knows where your family is? Benny asked, his voice filled with curiosity and concern.
I hope so, Oliver replied, his eyes shining with a mixture of hope and fear. Professor Hootington is very wise, Lily added, her voice filled with admiration.
Just wait, Oliver, Sammy said reassuringly. He always has the best advice, and he never lets anyone down.
Finally, Professor Hootington opened his eyes, his gaze steady and filled with wisdom.
Follow the stream, he said, his voice echoing with certainty. It will lead you to a place where the river widens, a place known for its beauty and tranquility. Look for a fallen log with 3 claw marks, a sign left by your family. That's where you'll find your family, waiting for you by the river.
Oliver's heart soared with joy and relief. He thanked Professor Hootington, and with Benny, Lily and Sammy by his side, set off to follow the stream, their spirits lifted. He felt a surge of hope, fueled by the kindness of his new friends and the wisdom of the old owl. They journeyed for what felt like hours, following the twists and turns of the stream, their anticipation growing with each step. Oliver couldn't shake the feeling that he was getting closer to home, his senses heightened by the familiar surroundings. The air smelled familiar, and he thought he recognized the shape of the hills in the distance, a sign that he was on the right path. As they rounded a bend in the stream, Oliver stopped dead in his tracks. A familiar scent tickled his nose, the scent of fish and wet fur and something else, something comforting and dear. His heart pounded in his chest. Could it be?
There it is, the place Professor Hootington described.
The stream flowed into a wider part of the river, and on the bank lay a fallen log with 3 distinct claw marks. Oliver raced towards it, his friends close behind.
Mama, Papa.
He cried, his voice filled with a mixture of hope and fear. He scrambled onto the log, his heart pounding in his chest, and then he saw them, his family. His mother and father were huddled with his siblings in a dry spot beneath the log. The log provided just enough shelter to keep them safe from the elements. They looked thinner and worried, but they were all right. Despite their hardships, they had managed to stay together and keep each other safe.
Oliver,
She cried, rushing towards him. Her heart was pounding with joy and relief. She engulfed him in a hug so tight he could barely breathe. It was a hug filled with love and relief.
Mama, Papa, I missed you so much. His voice was filled with emotion.
Oliver had never been so happy to see anyone in his life. The reunion was everything he had hoped for. He snuggled into his mother's fur, the familiar warmth chasing away the last of his fear. It felt like home. He chattered excitedly, telling them all about his adventures, introducing Benny, Lily, and Sammy. His stories were filled with excitement and wonder. Oliver's parents thanked his new friends for taking such good care of him. They were deeply grateful.
Thank you, Benny, Lily, and Sammy. Your kindness means the world to us. We are so grateful for your kindness. You have given us back our son.
It was our pleasure. Oliver is a wonderful friend. We are lucky to have met him.
We're so happy to see you all reunited. It's a beautiful sight.
Yeah, it's like we have a bigger family now. We're all connected.
As the otter family played and splashed in the river, Oliver knew he had found something very special, a second family in the heart of the forest. The bond they shared was unbreakable. From that day on, Oliver's life was twice as fun. He had more love and joy than he ever imagined. He had his otter family and his forest family. Both were equally important to him. He spent his days swimming and playing with his siblings, learning to fish and build dams. Every day was an adventure. And he never forgot his friends Benny, Lily, and Sammy. He visited them often, sharing stories and adventures.
Benny, Lily, Sammy, guess what I learned today?
What is it, Oliver?
Tell us.
I learned how to catch a trout with my paws.
That sounds amazing. Show us how.
They taught him to climb trees and fish in the lake. He taught them the best mudslides and how to catch a tasty trout. Oliver learned that family isn't just about who you were born to, but about who loves and cares for you. He was lucky to have two families, each one special in its own way, and he knew that no matter what adventures life threw his way, he would always have a safe and loving place to call home.
I'm so lucky to have all of you. Thank you for being my family.
The end.